Hey y'all, Jamie here with Country Diggers. Today I'm going to do the ballad. It's not a murder ballad, but it's a love story ballad with a bad ending. Okay. But anyway, it's called The Ballad of Fair Margaret and Sweet William. And I'll be reading from AppalachiaBear.com. And I'll be singing the Rhiannon Giddens version, Little Margaret. Okay, stay tuned. Little Margaret by Rhiannon Giddens. Little Margaret sitting in her high hall chair, combing back her long yellow hair. She saw Sweet William and his new bride riding up the road so near. She threw down her ivory comb, threw back her yellow hair, said, I'll go down and I'll bid him farewell, and I'll never more go there. It was late in the night, they were fast asleep. Little Margaret appeared, all dressed in white, standing at their bed feet, saying, how do you like my snow white pillow? How do you like your sheet? Saying, how do you like that pretty fair maid who lays in your arms asleep? Very well do I like my snow white pillow, well do I like my sheet. Much better do I like that pretty fair maid who stands at my bed feet. He called his serving man to go and saddle the dappled roan, and he rode for her father's house that night, knocked on the door alone, saying, is little Margaret in her room or is she in the hall? Little Margaret's in her coal black coffin with her face turned towards the wall. Unfold, unfold those snow white robes, be they ever so fine, for I want to kiss those cold, cold lips, for I know they'll never kiss mine. 3 times he kissed her cold, cold hand, twice he kissed her cheek, but once he kissed her cold, cold lips, then he fell in her arms asleep. Okay, I know. You don't have to tell me I can't sing, I know. But on to the article. Okay, this is from AppalachiaBear.com. The Ballad of Fair Margaret and Sweet William by Delonda Anderson, and the article is from April 2023. Appalachia Bear recently published Stephen Billow's poem Little Margaret, a thoughtful and earnest homage to his friend James Elton, Jim Macmillan Jr., who was among many talents a musician. Stephen's poem Little Margaret is the namesake of one of Jim's songs. Jim generously passed along a recording of Jim and his band singing Little Margaret, and they were honored to include it. Okay, persons familiar with ballads, particularly ballads sung in Appalachia, may recognize the song's lyrics are borrowed from a ballad called Fair Margaret and Sweet William. Indeed, Stephen includes some of these lyrics in his poem. Little Margaret lying in a long black coffin with her face turned towards the wall. 3 times he kissed her cold, cold hand, and twice he kissed her cheek, and once he kissed her cold, cold lips, and then in her arms asleep. So many of these ballads were brought to Appalachia from our motherlands, from our ancestors coming over here. Okay, and Stephen's poem and Jim's song, Little Margaret, offers us a doorway to a ballad that appears in popular culture as recently as 2003 in the soundtrack from the movie Cold Mountain, number 13, Lady Margaret. I'm going to have to watch that again so I can watch for that song. I have the movie, but so come along with me and we'll walk a little exploration trail into this ballad. For reference, the entire ballad, at least one version, is found at the end of this article, okay? Allow me to briefly summarize. Fair Margaret and Sweet William sit on a hill, and a breakup occurs. William tells her he's marrying someone else. Later, she watches Sweet William's marriage procession from her high bedroom window. Margaret dies either by suicide or a broken heart, depending on which version. Her ghost materializes before Sweet William to ask him if he loves the bed, the pillow, the sheets, and the new bride more than herself. William replies he loves the bed, the pillow, the sheets, but loves Margaret best of all. As the night wears on, nightmares plague him into the morning. After waking, William rides to Margaret's estate to search for her. He knocks on the door and asks after her. Margaret's family tells him she is dead and lead him to her coffin. Sweet William kisses her face, cheek, chin, and lips, after which he too dies of a broken heart in her cold arms. Other versions say he died atop her grave or the next day. They are buried beside each other. A rose grows from her grave and a briar grows from his. The rose and briar grow until they form a true lover's knot. That's sweet, but sad. One can never really tell when a ballad began. But a few lyrics from Fair Margaret and Sweet William appear in the 1611 Beaumont and Fletcher play, The Night of the Burning Pestle. That's Knight, The Night of the Burning Pestle. In came Margaret's grimy ghost and stood at William's feet. And you are no love for me, Margaret. I am no love for you. Okay? The ballad is the ballad in its entirety first appeared in print as Fair Margaret's Misfortune in a 1720 broadside. And Francis J. Child published the ballad as number 74 in his extensive volumes, The English and Scottish Popular Ballads. Okay, Child is a scholar and a folklorist, and he is arguably the nation's most well-known ballad collector. And I have read some of them, the murder ballads on this playlist and stuff. I get from reading his stuff, okay? And they are extensive. They're big. Anyway, like all ballads, several versions exist of Fair Margaret and Sweet William. Controversy about this ballad fermented in the early 1700s. In 1711, another ballad emerged titled William and Margaret, an old ballad. The story unfolds the same, but is written in a more literary style. Most writers at the time attributed William and Margaret to Scottish poet and playwright David Mallet, aka Mallet. In 1721, he published another version, this time in his name, called Margaret's Ghost. At the time, some scholars believed Mallet's ballad and Fair Margaret and Sweet William were closely related. Francis J. Child said Mallet's version was simply Fair Margaret and Sweet William rewritten in what used to be called an elegant style. The style between the two is definitely different, and the elegant style leads a different tone. Aside from the first stanza, proving a rewrite is difficult, And even though similarities exist in that stanza, the fourth line is different. In Fair Margaret and Sweet William, the line reads, "Little Margaret appeared all dressed in white, as standing at their bed feet," while William and Margaret reads, "Gilded Margaret's grimy ghost, and stood at William's feet." Supernatural elements in Mallet's version are more forced and a little gothic. The narrative structure between the two are different. The English Folk Dance and Song Society explains, in Fair Margaret and Sweet William, stanzas balance each other. Dialogue alternates between speakers, and there is a progression in both time and place. In William and Margaret, the marriage to another woman is not depicted at all. Action is at a minimum, and speech takes the form of extended declamation rather than dialogue. What's more, Mallet wasn't a popular guy. Samuel Johnson said Mallet had personal motives that were mercenary, and his literary work was forgettable. In 1880, William Chappell accused Mallet of out-and-out plagiarism. Both ballads appeared in several broadsides back in the day. They also appeared in anthologies. William and Margaret appeared in Allan Ramsay's 1740 Tea Table Miscellany, or a collection of choice songs, Scots and English. Fair Margaret and Sweet William appeared in Thomas Percy's 1775 Relics of Ancient English Poetry. The ballad has changed through the centuries to fit the region, times, and or singer. I've come to find that that's how most ballads work. And the core of the story is still there. Francis Child lists 3 versions, A, B, and C. In Appalachia, the song follows all 3 of these in some form, though the scene where William and Margaret talk on a hill is dropped for the most part. The British traditional ballad in North America by Tristram P. Coffin attests that several types of the ballad, Fair Margaret and Sweet William, exist. A, B, C, D, E, F, and maybe more. The bullet points below give examples of these differences. A. The ballad begins with Sweet William dressing in blue, spurning Lady Margaret, and digging the proverbial knife in deeper when he tells her she'll see him marry someone else. The rest of the story is the same as in the summary. B. Everything is the same, except Margaret throws herself out the window and dies. C. The difference here is William's new wife has the dream instead of him. She tells him about it. D. Everything is the same, except she has her mother and sister make her bed and bind her head because she feels ill. Then she dies of a broken heart. E. The difference in this one is Margaret is alive at the foot of William's bed. F. Margaret's ghost comes to the foot of the bed and blesses the sleeping lovers before going to the grave. Some believe the versions share similar lyrics and themes, but most of them are different enough to warrant being completely different songs. Yet a ballad works its way to differences like a ladder. One step builds on another until it becomes what it is. As the Britannica notes, the first recording of a ballad must not be assumed to be the ballad's original form. Behind each recorded ballad can be one detected the working of tradition upon earlier form, since a ballad does not become a ballad until it has run a course in tradition. The song still inspires singers and musicians. Even Canada has a version. Like most ballads, Fair Margaret and Sweet William was an oral tradition in England, Scotland, and Ireland, but in America it has staying power. Most, if not all, sound recordings of the ditty have been made in America. Pete Seeger included it in 2 albums. His 1957 Folkways album, American Ballads, and Columbia Live album, We Shall Overcome. The complete Carnegie Hall recording in 8th of June 1963. Seeger said of the ballad, "The ballad was one of the first I ever learned in 1935 from the country lawyer and old-time banjo picker of Asheville, North Carolina, Bascom Lunsford. My thanks to him, it is a medieval vignette, and the last verses describing the conversation between Lady Margaret's ghost and her false lover are as close as we get to superstition in this LP. Singers from the Wild Goose album, Return Journey, noted, one time when visiting the Roaring Forks section of Madison County, North Carolina, I heard little 9-year-old Alice Payne sing this song, just as given here. She had learned it from her mother and grandmother and had never seen a written copy. So our trail has led us back to where ballads all began, the oral tradition. The aforementioned little girl learned the ballad through her matriarchs singing. Thanks to various broadsides, collections, and analogies, we have been able to share these beautiful poems and songs with the world. All right. Hope y'all enjoyed, and see you back soon. Bye.